All right, so today we're going to be diving into the future of investment.
Ooh,
We're going to be
exciting.
cracking open this really interesting newsletter
Okay,
called Three Things Never to Fade.
interesting.
The author is an investor with a killer track record,
Hmm.
and they're basically sharing their playbook,
Okay.
like the big unstoppable trends they look for when they're making investments.
Gotcha.
So think of it like your cheat sheet to what's going to shape the next decade,
Okay.
and not just for your portfolio.
Right.
This stuff matters whether you're into finance or not.
Yeah, it's kind of like these big macro trends that are going to affect everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I found really fascinating about this newsletter
Hmm.
is that the author goes beyond the usual market chatter
Right.
and focuses on these almost like universal forces.
Yeah.
It's not just about picking stocks.
Hmm.
It's about understanding these fundamental shifts
Yeah.
that are going to reshape everything.
Exactly.
So the first North Star, as they call it, is energy density.
Mm.
And they start off with this super vivid image.
Okay.
Imagine a world with 10 times more wild animals
Wow.
than humans.
Okay.
That was the reality before we figured out how to harness dense energy sources.
Yeah, that puts it into perspective.
Right.
Wow.
It's like it really throws in perspective how much energy has transformed our world.
Absolutely.
And we're not just talking about, keeping the lights on here.
Right.
Think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Agriculture,
Transportation.
industry technology.
It all hinges on energy.
Yeah, it all hinges on our ability to access and utilize energy efficiently.
It's the foundation of everything.
Yeah, so where do we go from here?
Right.
The author seems pretty bullish
Hmm.
on the future of dense energy sources.
Okay.
Things like hydrocarbons,
Okay.
nuclear, even geothermal.
Interesting.
They argue that countries that are leaning into these will have a major economic advantage.
Okay. I can see why they would say that.
Yeah, and they make a pretty compelling case.
Mm.
They acknowledge the importance of renewables.
Like wind and solar.
Yeah, like wind and solar.
Especially as we try to, move toward a more sustainable energy mix.
Yeah, of course.
But they also highlight the limitations of current battery technology.
Right.
Like we just don't have the capacity to store enough energy from these variable sources to meet the constant demand.
Right, like what happens when the wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining.
Exactly.
And they also bring up a good point about certain industries,
Oh, yeah.
like steel, cement, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They need incredibly high heat,
Right.
which fossil fuels provide very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to create that same level of heat from electricity generated by wind or solar,
It's just not efficient right now.
just not efficient.
Yeah.
It's a complex equation.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of technological hurdles to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
The author isn't dismissing renewables entirely,
Right.
but they're pushing us to think realistically about the challenges
Yeah.
and to consider the full spectrum of energy options.
I think that's a really important point
Yeah.
to keep in mind.
Okay, so energy density, that's a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
What's the next North Star we need to be following?
Get ready for this one. It's computation.
Ooh,
We're talking about processing power,
okay.
the brains behind everything from your smartphone to our artificial intelligence.
And the author throws out this crazy stat.
Okay.
Today's processors are reaching the computational power of the human brain.
Whoa.
That was pure science fiction just a few years ago.
I know it's mind-blowing how fast this field is evolving.
So we've got all this power.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do with it?
Right.
Is it all just about faster phones and cooler video games?
Well, that's where the software comes in.
Okay,
The author makes a clear distinction.
right.
Processing power is essential,
Mhm.
but it's the software that unlocks AI's true potential.
Gotcha.
It's like having a Ferrari with a bicycle engine.
Okay.
You need both the horsepower and the sophisticated engineering to really make it sing.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So where does AI fit into this big picture of the future?
Mm.
What kind of impact are we talking about?
Well, the author predicts that the 2020s and 2030s will be the decades where computation revolutionizes white-collar work.
Interesting.
Think about it.
Okay.
Tractors and robots transformed agriculture and manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, AI is poised to do the same for fields like law, finance, even creative industries.
So instead of replacing manual labor, it's replacing brain power.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
We're already seeing it with things like AI writing, assisting lawyers, with legal research, creating art and music.
So tasks that were once thought to be uniquely human
Mm-hmm.
are now being done by algorithms.
Exactly.
Okay, now that's where things start to feel a little unsettling.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what does this mean for the future of work?
Right.
What happens when AI can do our jobs better, faster, and cheaper?
It's definitely a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
And it leads to another fascinating point the author brings up. They talk about this Chinese AI company called DeepSeek.
DeepSeek?
Yeah, they're achieving results comparable to the industry giants, but using a fraction of the resources.
Interesting. So are they just super efficient, or is something else going on here?
It's possible that a lot of these big AI companies are overspending,
Okay.
caught up in the hype.
Right.
This DeepSeek example suggests that the real breakthroughs might come from unexpected places.
Yeah.
And it raises questions about how we value these companies.
It's like anything new and shiny.
Right.
There's a gold rush mentality. And sometimes people get ahead of themselves.
Yeah.
But even if some companies are overvalued, the underlying trend of accelerating computation isn't going away.
Absolutely.
It's a force to be reckoned with.
And that brings us to the third North Star the author uses to guide their investment strategy, network effects.
Okay. I think I know a little something about this one.
Okay.
It's like the more people use something, the more valuable it becomes, right? Like Facebook or, well, the internet itself.
You got it.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. Imagine you had the only telephone in the world.
Right.
Pretty useless, right?
Useless.
It's the network of users that gives it value.
Right. The more people you can connect with, the more powerful the tool becomes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the author highlights how this applies to so much more than just social media.
Yeah.
Think about communication protocols like USB or even the English language.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
The more people speak English, the more useful it becomes for everyone who speaks it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the author's friend Jeff Booth has this concept called the 10x rule.
Oh, okay.
It basically says that to dethrone a dominant player, a challenger needs to be 10 times better, not just slightly improved.
So it's not enough to just make a slightly better USB port.
Right.
You need something radically different to break through those network effects.
Exactly.
Wow.
They use the USB example to illustrate this point.
Okay.
Billions of devices use USB ports. A slightly better version isn't going to change that.
Yeah.
But something fundamentally different, something 10 times better, could disrupt the entire ecosystem.
It's like you need to overcome the inertia of all those existing users.
Yeah.
Wow, this is giving me a whole new way to look at the products and services I use every day.
Yeah.
What about you? What stands out to you about network effects?
Well, what strikes me is how these seemingly simple ideas have such a profound implications.
Right.
We often take these network effects for granted,
Yeah.
but they're the invisible forces shaping so much of our world.
Yeah.
From the technology we use to the languages we speak,
Right.
and even the financial systems that power our economies.
It's like a hidden layer of complexity
Absolutely.
that we don't always think about.
Right.
So we've got these three North Stars:
Yeah.
energy density, computation, and network effects. How does the author actually use these to make investment decisions?
They're like filters. When the author looks at a potential investment, they ask 3 key questions.
Hit me with those questions.
Does this company or technology compete with denser sources of energy?
Okay.
Is it on the wrong side of the computation revolution?
Right.
And is it going up against powerful network effects?
So if the answer to any of those is yes, it's a red flag.
Not necessarily a deal breaker, but definitely a cause for caution.
Okay.
It raises the risk profile significantly.
Gotcha.
The author argues that betting against these long-term trends is like swimming upstream.
Right.
It's not impossible,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a lot harder.
Makes sense. And
Yeah.
like trying to launch a new social media platform today, you're not
Right.
just competing with other startups.
You're going up against Facebook.
You're going up against the behemoth that is Facebook's network effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
The author emphasizes that even within these massive trends, there are cycles.
Okay.
Things can get overheated and markets can overreact.
So it's not just a straight line up and to the right.
Right.
Well, oh.
They use the example of Bitcoin, which has gone through these wild boom and bust cycles,
Yes.
even though the underlying technology and adoption have continued to grow over time.
I've definitely felt that roller coaster ride.
I bet.
It's tough to separate the hype from the real potential sometimes.
Absolutely. And the author also points to the semiconductor industry.
Okay.
It's a crucial part of the modern economy, but it's notoriously cyclical.
Okay.
Companies like AMD and Micron have experienced huge drops in their stock prices in the past,
Wow.
only to rebound and reach new highs later on.
So it's about understanding the long game.
Right.
but also being aware of those shorter-term fluctuations.
Exactly.
Don't panic and sell everything when the market dips,
Right.
but don't get caught up in the hype and buy at the peak either.
Exactly. It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
Stay focused on those North Stars, but also be mindful of the market's tendency to overshoot in both directions.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Oh, good. I'm
I feel like I have a much clearer understanding of the forces shaping the future
Yeah.
and how to think about investing in this rapidly changing world.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah. But before I dump everything into energy stocks and AI startups,
Right.
didn't the author also caution against getting too carried away?
Did they remind us that even the most powerful trends have cycles?
Right. They mentioned Bitcoin going through those wild boom and bust cycles, even though the underlying technology and adoption have continued to grow over time.
Yeah, and they also brought up the semiconductor industry,
Yeah.
which is essential to the modern economy, but it's notoriously cyclical.
Yeah.
Companies like AMD and Micron have experienced massive drawdowns in the past, only to rebound and reach new highs later on.
So the lesson here is to stay focused on the long-term trends, but also be aware of those shorter-term cycles
Exactly.
that can cause temporary fluctuations.
Right. Don't get too caught up in the hype, but don't lose sight of the forest for the trees either.
Okay, so we've got the big picture framework.
Hmm.
What else does the author share in this newsletter?
Well, they actually put their money where their mouth is.
Oh, interesting.
They have a few model portfolios that they track and report on.
Okay,
One of them is designed specifically for the newsletter readers.
gotcha.
Transparent, easy to understand,
Mhm.
and something people could potentially replicate if they wanted to.
Cool. What's the strategy behind that portfolio?
It's globally diversified,
Okay.
a mix of stocks and bonds,
Mm-hmm.
but they also allocate to some alternative assets
But-
like precious metals
Yeah.
and, you guessed it, Bitcoin.
Interesting. So they're not just armchair quarterbacks, they're actually putting skin in the game.
Exactly. And get this.
Okay.
They compare the performance of this model portfolio to a more traditional indexed portfolio.
Yeah.
The model portfolio has outperformed significantly.
Wow. So actively managing a portfolio based on these North Stars actually makes a difference.
It seems so. Of course, past performance doesn't guarantee future results and all that.
Right, of course.
But it's compelling evidence that understanding these long-term trends can give you an edge.
This is making me rethink my whole investment approach.
Huh?
But before we wrap up, there's one thing I'm still curious about.
Okay.
The author talks about computation surpassing the human brain.
Right.
That's mind-blowing,
Yeah.
but also kind of scary.
It is a big question.
What does that even mean for us as humans?
Well, the author offers a really fascinating perspective on it.
Right.
They talk about how, from a physics standpoint, the universe tends toward disorder.
Okay.
Entropy always increases.
Right.
The life, especially human life, is all about creating order.
Right. We build cities, create complex systems.
Exactly.
We're constantly organizing and structuring the world around us.
Exactly. And computation is the ultimate expression of that human drive for order.
Okay.
Think about it. We take countless atoms and arrange them in a way that allows them to perform complex calculations.
Right.
Even mimic human reasoning.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And now with computational power exceeding the human brain, we're entering uncharted territory.
Right.
What are the implications of that?
Well, the author poses this final thought-provoking question. What does this accelerating computation mean for your future?
Whoa.
Yeah,
It's a heavy question,
it is.
but it's one we all need to grapple with.
I agree.
The world is changing rapidly, and understanding these fundamental trends is crucial to navigating the future.
Absolutely.
Whether you're an investor or just someone trying to make sense of it all,
It's a wild ride.
it is a wild ride.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to recap what we've learned so far.
Okay, sounds good.
We've talked about energy density and the author's perspective on why dense energy sources are likely to remain crucial for economic growth.
Right.
We explored the mind-blowing world of computation and how AI is poised to transform white-collar work.
Absolutely.
And we delved into the power of network effects and why they create such formidable moats for dominant players.
Those are some powerful forces shaping the future.
They really are. And as we move into the next part of this deep dive, we're going to explore how the author actually puts these ideas into practice.
Okay.
We'll take a look at their model portfolios and see how they've managed to outperform the market by leveraging these long-term trends.
Looking forward to it.
So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into 3 things never to fade.
It really is mind-blowing, like, how these simple ideas have these huge implications.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't even think about network effects. They're
Yeah.
everywhere, but we take them for granted.
It's true. It's true.
They're like these invisible forces that are shaping, like, literally everything.
Yeah, from the tech we use to,
Yeah.
like you said, the languages we speak,
Yeah.
even financial systems.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Yeah.
we've got these 3 North Stars, right? Energy density,
Computation.
computation, and network effects. How does the author actually use these to make investment decisions?
Like, how do they use it?
Yeah, like, is this just a theoretical framework,
Yeah.
or do they actually put this into practice?
Well, they actually do put it into practice.
Okay.
They're not just talking the talk.
Right.
They're walking the walk.
Okay.
So they actually have a few model portfolios that they track and report on in the newsletter.
Oh, interesting.
And one of them is like designed specifically for the newsletter readers.
Okay, so it's like a transparent kind of like
Well, easy to understand.
easy to understand.
And something that people could actually replicate if they wanted to.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what's the strategy behind that portfolio?
It's globally diversified,
Okay.
a mix of stocks and bonds,
Hmm.
but they also allocate to some alternative assets,
Oh, interesting. Like what?
like precious metals.
Okay.
And you guessed it, Bitcoin.
Of course, Bitcoins.
Yeah.
So they're really like putting their money where their mouth is.
Exactly. And get this,
Okay.
they actually compare the performance of this model portfolio to like a more traditional index portfolio.
Okay.
And the model portfolio has outperformed significantly.
Wow. So actively managing a portfolio based on these North Stars actually makes a difference.
It seems so. Of course, past performance doesn't guarantee future results.
Right. Of course, the classic disclaimer.
Gotta say it. But it's compelling evidence that like understanding these long-term trends can give you an edge.
This is making me rethink my whole investment approach.
Haha.
But before we wrap up, there's one thing I'm still curious about.
Okay, what's that?
The author talks about computation surpassing the human brain. That's mind-blowing, but also kind of scary.
It is a big question. Like, what does that even mean for us as humans?
Yeah, like, are we becoming obsolete?
Oh.
Is this like the beginning of the end?
Well, the author offers a really fascinating perspective on it.
Okay, I'm listening.
They talk about how, from a physics standpoint, the universe tends toward disorder.
Okay.
Entropy always increases.
The second law of thermodynamics.
There you go. But life, especially human life, is all about creating order.
Right. We build cities, create complex systems. We're constantly organizing and structuring the world around us.
Exactly. And computation is like the ultimate expression of that human drive for order.
Okay, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, think about it. We take countless atoms and arrange them in a way that allows them to perform complex calculations, even mimic human reasoning.
It's true. It's like we're imposing order on chaos.
Exactly. And now with computational power exceeding the human brain, we're entering uncharted territory.
So what are the implications of that? Like, where do we go from here?
Well, the author poses this final thought-provoking question. What does this accelerating computation mean for your future?
Whoa, that's deep.
It is.
That's a heavy question.
It is, but it's one we all need to grapple with.
I agree. The world is changing rapidly, and understanding these fundamental trends is crucial to navigating the future, whether you're an investor or just someone trying to make sense of it all.
It's a wild ride, that's for sure.
It is wild, right? And that's exactly what we're doing here today, trying to make sense of it all.
Absolutely, trying to understand the forces shaping the future so we can make better decisions today.
And that's a perfect segue into the final part of our deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Where we'll explore the author's insights on how to actually navigate these choppy waters.
Looking forward to it.
So buckle up, folks. We're diving even deeper into 3 things never to fade in part 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is mind-blowing.
It is, like you said, it kind of makes you think.
Yeah.
Like, what does it all mean?
Right. Are we becoming obsolete?
Is this the beginning of the end?
Yeah, those are big questions.
They are big questions.
But I like how the author doesn't leave us in a state of existential dread.
Right.
Instead, they point to this idea that even though the universe tends toward disorder, life itself is this incredible force for order.
Yeah, it's like we're constantly pushing back against that entropy.
Right, like we take chaos and we turn it into something structured, something complex.
Exactly. And computation is like this ultimate expression of that human drive to create order.
It's like we're writing symphonies with atoms.
It's beautiful when you think about it that way.
It is. And the crazy thing is, it's only getting more powerful, more complex.
Right.
Where does it go from here?
Yeah, it's a big question.
What happens when the things we create start to surpass our own abilities in ways we can't even imagine?
That's the journey into the unknown, right? And there's no roadmap.
No roadmap.
But the author doesn't present this as something to be feared.
Yeah.
It's like a challenge. It's an opportunity
Yeah.
to step up and like shape the future that we want to see.
So it's not about trying to stop progress or hold back the tide.
Right.
It's about understanding these powerful forces.
And then harnessing them
Yeah, and using them wisely.
for good.
For good, right?
Yeah.
Asking the right questions,
Yeah.
making conscious choices about the kind of world we want to build.
It's not just about the technology itself. It's about the values we embed in it.
Yeah.
The choices we make about how we use it.
Right. It's about making sure that these advancements benefit all of humanity, not just a select few.
Exactly.
It's a big responsibility,
It is.
but also incredibly exciting.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a really exciting time to be alive.
It feels like we're at this pivotal moment, and the decisions we make today
Are going to have ripple effects.
will have ripple effects for generations to come.
It's true.
So we've talked about these three North Stars,
Yeah, energy density computation network effects.
the cycles within those trends,
Right.
the importance of staying grounded.
But also like embracing those possibilities.
Embracing those possibilities, yeah.
It's a powerful framework
It is a powerful framework.
on navigating the future.
Yeah, whether you're an investor or just a citizen of this rapidly changing world.
Totally.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I think they have a whole new perspective on the future
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
and the forces that are shaping it. And that final question,
That final question gets me every time.
what does this accelerating computation mean for your future?
Yeah. What does it mean for you?
I think that's a question we all need to be asking ourselves.
I agree. It's a call to action.
It is a call to action,
To be active participants in shaping the future.
not passive observers.
Yeah, we all have a role to play.
We all have a role to play, and if you want to explore these ideas further, we highly recommend checking out the full newsletter.
Definitely a good read.
We've linked it in the show notes.
It's worth a look.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring,
And keep diving deep.
keep diving deep.